Welcome back to the Pathfinders podcast. I'm your host, Pete Schramm, founder and CEO of Latitude. Today, we're going to dive into a couple of fun topics around career maps and a personal board of advisors. The concepts from the Pathfinders book that came out in November of 2023. So, reminder that the career map focuses on those 5 dimensions of that professional journey. Our guests have amazing stories to tell around those roles they were in, the skills, achievements, accomplishments, education, and some of the fun stuff along the way. And then we couple that plan together with the PBA, Personal Board of Advisors, those multiple mentors that help them get there. We will post this on LinkedIn, so please comment along the way, as well as the different podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and it'll be on YouTube as well. So excited to dive in. And our guest today, her favorite quote is, "Give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime." I love it. And Heather partners with clients to curate custom workplace experiences, resulting in healthy workplace cultures where people and their talents thrive and flourish. Prior to launching her consulting firm, Heather thrived in various HR and global DEI leadership roles with Fortune 500 companies such as Mars Inc. and TC Energy. She's worked around the globe, as you'll hear more in the story today, traversing multiple industries, including consumer goods, energy, manufacturing, education, and transportation. We'll get a couple of shout outs from Dr. V along the way. Thanks for introducing our guest to us today. And before Heather comes up on stage, the fun fact is that she's excited to one day try glass blowing. Without further ado, Heather, welcome up to the stage. Thanks for joining us today.
Pete, thank you for having me. What a great introduction as well. I'm excited.
Yeah. So the way we start these off every time is, well, probably ask a little bit more about why haven't you tried out glass blowing yet? What's holding you back?
Funny enough, nothing. I think I remembered it, forgot about it. What originally actually got me into glass blowing was I was around 8th grade or high school, and you got to choose your science project. And there was some project that I chose, and I can't tell you what it was now, but it involved like a blowtorch. And I think it was something with glass blowing. And of course, given the age, remember I said 8th grade or high school, they wouldn't let me do it. So ever since then, I've wanted to do something with a blowtorch and glass blowing. So recently, I'm based in Chicago. They have the architectural tour. So I volunteered and participated. One of the stops was a glass blowing. So I'm actually going to sign up for the glass blowing class before the year is over. I
love it. Cannot wait to hear more. You'll have to comment and post some photos of this cool experience.
I will do that.
We're here to listen to you and hear about you, but I love that kind of stuff. Pottery, stone carving, glass blowing. Sign me up. I'm in for it. I made some ornaments in a glass blowing class, but I want to go back for like open office hours next time so I can do my own thing. I don't know if they'll let me or not, but whenever you get over to Pittsburgh, we'll have to go. We'll invite Dr. V. We'll go do some glass blowing.
That'll be our group activity. That's part of the fun. That's part of the fun stuff. I feel like I need to have you do the work. I need to have a creative outlet as well. And I'm working on honing into that more and more now.
So that's now, but let's talk about young Heather, okay? What did you want to be when you were growing up?
For a long time, I didn't have a specific career field, but eventually it came to be, I wanted to be an attorney or a lawyer. I think that was because that was one of the few careers that I knew where you could make a good amount of money. And so that was kind of the only thing I thought that I wanted to be because, my mom worked in a law firm as a legal secretary. My dad worked at the post office, and I was around some of the law, and I was attracted to what was fair and what was right. But as I grew older and learned really what an attorney, what was involved, or at least what I thought was involved at the time, I wasn't as interested. I actually applied to law school after undergrad and did not get in twice. So, yeah. So, but after not getting in the first time, it actually led me to my career now. after not
Interesting.
getting
Before you get into now, tell us if you didn't, maybe you did. What did you study in school? And was it a pre-law so that those childhood aspirations, you said, I'm following this through and through and through? Or what was that like?
yeah, it's related. It's that my bachelor's is in communications
Hmm.
from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, and I took the approach of following what attracted me. There was a lot of communications, the verbal, the nonverbal, the speaking. So it absolutely was related. I just didn't know probably how related it was at the time. And so I followed the path of curiosity. That's
Hmm.
been my approach throughout my career then and now. And after getting that degree in communications, how do you communicate about what's fair? How do you put together an argument? How do you kind of put together your thoughts? That's very much related to the law. Then I thought I wanted to go to law school, applied, didn't get in. And I was like, okay, I'll apply again. In the midst of applying again, I discovered human resources and labor relations, the study of people and work. And in that course of time, I also got a chance to explore more about, because I was fascinated by, like I was saying, what's fair, what's right in the workplace. And I thought employment law or labor law. And when I discovered a lot of times the attorneys, they're really reading a lot of the documents, that was too far away from the action for me.
Yep.
So that's when I discovered human resource and labor relations, where you're on the inside advocating, helping to sort of make things right if they go wrong, or be part of the solution to further develop the culture. And that was my spot. That's when I discovered that was my jam. And so that shifted from applying to law school to I applied to grad school
Oh,
to human resources and labor relations. And so I researched around a couple different programs, and I knew I very much wanted a practitioner-based program where it was hands-on. And that led me to the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, where my labor and employment law course, the instructor was a practicing attorney in Chicago and Milwaukee. My collective bargaining course, he was an active commercial agent for the food and commercial workers. So to be able to take their experience, what they did at work that day, and to pair it in class, that was, for me, that was exactly what I was looking for, and kind of never looked back.
wow. Okay. So I love to ask the question from undergrad, from grad school, what tools stayed in your toolbox upon graduation? It might have been in the classroom, it might have been out
Hmm.
of the classroom, but not what you put into the toolbox. What
Yeah.
stayed in the toolbox?
That's a good question. I think what stayed in the cute toolbox were skills that I already had, and then I further developed at home, like that
Yeah.
curiosity,
Yeah.
um, the staying true to, like, even if I didn't exactly know what I wanted to do, I let that curiosity lead me to what um, drew me to that passion. I'd say being flexible and adaptable, those were skills that stayed in the toolbox, that are still in the toolbox today.
I love it. So then you finished up with Wisconsin, and I guess you wanted to stop going to Big Ten schools. So you said, I'm going to go somewhere else. Talk to us about that first role you had. Was this a point whenever you started to get into HR? We read in your bio you've worked at a lot of top-notch institutions, top-notch organizations on a global scale. Walk us through
Mhm.
the first one or two, please.
Yeah, actually, before I graduated grad school, because remember I said it was very much a practitioner-based programs. So one of the internships I had, which was really more of a job share,
Yeah.
working at the City of Milwaukee, and so that was for me the realization of, like, oh, this is okay. So it's not just an intern. This is somebody else's real job, and I'm sharing her job. So the sort of thought process, like, oh, I sort of need to, you're not a student anymore. This is the type of work and what I'm going to do in my career. And so working at the City of Milwaukee is what kind of really got me started in that job share. And for a city, you're looking at the test, you're looking at the exam, and you're doing some job sharing. So, for example, for the food safety, I remember going out with the food safety employee. And though, if you think of your grocery stores, your restaurants, convenience stores, any place that sells food, they have to inspect those.
Yeah.
So in a convenience store, if they sell meats and sandwiches and you're inspecting where the food is, where you as a customer see it, but where's the food stored? If it's down below in the basement, which are like some creepy places. So I went down there with the food inspector. I was leery because a lot of, what are mice attracted to? Rice and beans, and they're stored in these big bags, and that was gross. But it gave me insight. Okay, if you're hiring for this role, and to be able to walk up and down stairs, to go into confined spaces, and to be able to bear some of those different things. Or we went to a Kentucky Fried Chicken, and you're looking at the freezer, and how's the coleslaw stored? Is the stuff dripping down the sides, which was also gross. And I'm sensitive to smells. Ugh. So I knew that was not what I wanted to do. So fast forward, graduation comes, and first job out is working in manufacturing in a steel foundry. A foundry is a big, dusty, dirty, hot environment where there's these big 2-ton ovens, and it's making parts for the railroad industry, where there's lots of trains. And so my role as an HR supervisor, working in that facility, first job out, you get to really, what I enjoyed about it was I really put into play some of the things that I'd already learned, and I had already been working there because I'd actually previously interned at the company in the corporate office and worked at the plant, and then had multiple plant responsibilities. So from labor relation management, when there's discussions or points of sort of disagreement between the company and the union, or between two different leaders and being that negotiator, or employees are working 3 shifts. And how do you recruit? How do you develop that talent? How does promotions move into play? So all of that came into play. It was a great environment because it was at the time. I'm like, oh, it's great. I can just wear some jeans to work. But there's that piece there again, from a workplace safety, steel toe boots, hard hat. It wasn't your traditional corporate environment, which for me was fine, but some people may not have been open to that. So I think when I think back, though, to what was important in those skills that you asked about, the adaptability, the flexibility, the communications for sure, and being able to understand the different jobs that exist, to be able to translate that, whether it's internally to people, to say, okay, this is the type of skills you're looking for, or even just to be able to say something simple in terms of communicating to someone else, this is what I do. And what's a foundry? Like, breaking that down to say it's something hot, dusty, dirty environment, and it's something that a lot of times in our backyards that we don't even know.
So as you're migrating from role to role, conversation to conversation, experience to experience, there's probably some folks that started to guide you. You gave a little bit of a heads up to some of those fantastic professors you had along the way. You've been remarkable job experience up to this point. I think, coming from Pittsburgh, right? The steel mill sound pretty powerful, pretty special here. I did a little bit of time in there myself. But talk to us about some of the guides you had along the way, Heather, right? And as we start to think about the personal board of advisors that was helping you along the way.
Yeah, I'd say probably my earliest boards of advisors. When I thought about this question, I was like, who are my board advisors? But if I think about it, my kind of first set of boards of advisors were my parents.
Yeah.
And looking at how they worked, or their approach to work, which is what I looked at. And I remember thinking, like, what type of work environment do you want to be in, knowing that we'll spend a lot of our lives at work. you at least want to semi like what you do? Like how can I work smarter, not necessarily harder? To where you have a little bit more freedom and flexibility and the benefit of education. So that was my first set of advisors were my parents. And then along the way, especially early on, I don't feel like I had formal mentors. They were probably more informal mentors. And that board of advisors were people that I sought out. And the sort of my guiding principle then and now is what type of, because especially think about to early on where my parents and in that cycle of and all it's where there's lots of layouts. I mean, you talk about steel, construction, manufacturing, especially late 90s, ups and downs and ups and downs. So how can I minimize that fact? So my thought process and that guiding principle is how do you make yourself a niche? How do you make yourself a unicorn? How do you also kind of ride the waves and make yourself employable? So in doing that and using that guiding principle, it's like, okay, let me find the things that in an organization people aren't raising their hand to do, and let my curiosity lead me. So that's also how I found some of those boards of advisors. So like in those first couple roles in those manufacturing plants, when they're male dominated industries and there's very few women and very few women of color, even fewer women of color in the manufacturing plant in steel toe boots, who are the sort of plant managers, who knows the business, who was sort of also good at leading their teams. Those were the people that I sought out. So what I would do and my approach would be is, hey, I want to learn more about the business. So that makes me a better sort of people or HR professional for me to be able to help promote or recruit or develop. I need to know what your organization does. So I'd like to sit with you and your team or different roles. And I'd sort of develop my own onboarding plan and say, I'd like to sit with this. So I did a shift on the plant, not a full shift, but maybe an hour on the chipping and grinding line. When I moved into energy, I did a day with the technicians, a day with the pipeline construction. So for me, that was important for me to know and understand the business, and I can translate that within HR or to external candidates or within other leaders.
I love it. I think it's so you answered some of it. We'll keep building on that board. We got a couple of the first individuals, but I think a piece to highlight there and pull out is you went and consulted people that were in positions that you aspired to be in. You say, hey, I'm here, you're there. I don't care if we come from different backgrounds. I don't care if we look the same, look different. It's the outcomes and those results that really matter most. And I think that's so important. And what's the worst that could happen? They say nothing. They say no, right? But if you don't ask, somebody just texted me a picture earlier this morning. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. That's the same thing right here, right? So many folks, especially females, especially, individuals of color and different backgrounds say, they're not going to give me a shot with this mentoring thing. Why not? Right?
Yeah. And especially in those environments, it's less bureaucratic. People, a lot of times it's like, hey, you willing to help? You want to try it? Hey, we're happy to have you. And that's how I found various mentors along the way in different parts of the organization by, one for me wanting to learn, but also offering to help or what's your biggest pain point? And so how can I better learn, help you with that? And also, how can I learn?
Yeah. Hey, look, we're going to quick aside here. For any individuals that are maybe in, older white male dominated space and they're listening, they're saying, go Heather. Yes. I want to be able to dig down inside of myself and figure out how I go ask one of those guys for some advice and guidance. You gave us some of the initial steps. What kind of a pep talk might you give there? I think this is going to feed nicely into some of the work that you do, right? But give us a little bit of a pep talk. Hey, maybe think about this. What are you going to do before, some of your homework before you do that outreach? How are you going to where and when are you going to deliver it? Right. Let's break this down and take it to the Gemba, right? Thinking of our
Yeah, I'd say the couple pieces of advice and starting point is Start with you. What
Yeah.
is it that you want to know and learn? Or where is it that you think you need to develop that'll get you further ahead? Um, be strategic about kind of build a timeline for yourself. Like, who do you need to approach and why? Are you going for the title, the most influential, the loudest, which isn't necessarily one and the same as the most influential? Who also has the sort of ability to teach? So when it's something simulated or highly technical, who can help break it down for you? If you don't, especially like me, I don't come from a technical background. So I'd say
Mhm.
first start with, so those are some different things to think about. So when you get to the point, you're like, okay, pen and paper, I'm ready to go. Start with one or two areas that you want to know, learn more about, and an area that will make you more of a niche where there's maybe not a lot of women, not a lot of women of color, or whatever there is. Maybe it's a niche because it's just a highly specific piece of information. And then partner with the reach out to the leaders of those aspects of those organizations. And I'd say kind of share more to say, hey, here's what I know, here's what I'd like to learn more. And I'd like to learn more about what the nature of the business, how you make money, and how I can tie that to what I do. And then therefore, this will also allow me to help you. So
Mhm.
share what's in it for them. And I'd say share what's in it for you too, because you're helping each other.
Yeah.
And uh, in the context of, I think where people get nervous, put it in the context of the work. You want to learn more about the work. People are all too happy to share about their career path,
Mhm.
what they learned and how they got there. That's the easiest way. And then just organically, you will learn more about each other individually. And I think that builds connection rather than like, so what do you do for work? How many kids do you have? Start with the work because you're at work.
Yep.
That's the easiest place to start.
I love it. I think it makes a lot of sense to have a little bit of a plan. You give a lot of alignment to the call outs in the
Mhm.
Pathfinders book, right? Starting off with self, growing from that, making sure it's focused, right? Sure. What if
Yes.
we had sniper precision focus, right?
Yeah.
But with a little bit of a shotgun approach on how we do some of this
Mhm.
outreach, right? And so we're focusing in a structured manner there. So I think it makes a lot of sense and appreciate those little bit of guiding principles. Let's transition a little bit now to
Okay.
where you are taking your talents today, right? Dr.
Mhm.
V, brought us back together. So thank
Hey,
you.
Dr. B.
Uh,
Yes. Thank you, Dr.
yeah.
B.
Also, another Pathfinders podcast guest, Dr. Victoria Mattingly. But talk to us a little bit more about how you got connected to her and some of the work today.
I so related in the work that I do as the chief HR and DEI consultant and advocate in my work. I initially got connected to Dr. V while in Chicago for the National SHRM Conference earlier this year.
Hmm.
And she hosted a DEI happy hour, and I got to learn more about what she does, which is a lot around organizational and DEI related data and statistics, and being able to take that information,
Yeah.
your organizational data, and tell a story. So connecting to the work that I do today and how we kind of even gelled and vibe was just that. A lot of the work. So throughout my career, moving through HR into diversity and inclusion, where I started in HR, where the diversity and inclusion work or DEI work was informal because of just the nature of being the only fill in the blank, the only woman of color, the youngest, and then moving into formal D&I roles. One thing, the connector throughout that point, whether it's your people data, your business data, the data you have in your organization tells a story. And Dr. V and I bonded over that because she gets that. Her business is data. She loves data. So I think we even talked about how it would be great for us to work together at some point around where she does something with the data, and then we work together to kind of, whether it's help change talent or your approach to talent, or help especially mid to senior level move through the organization, and when it comes to talent, or just further cultivate that organizational culture. So the work that I do today is around that consultancy and advocacy when it comes to workplace cultures and improving workplace cultures and helping people thrive in that. So that may be related to talent, that may be related to diversity, equity, inclusion, or DEI for short.
Okay. So talk one step deeper on that, and let's kind of focus it in a little bit more of what we talked about here today, right?
Yeah.
Mentorship, putting together a career map. We talk about, diversifying the opportunities and the paths you might take in the future, right? You kind of had, I want to be a lawyer, maybe I'll go into HR, maybe labor relations. So thinking about those couple of options, and then thinking about that career map piece on the talent side, but also that mentorship bit, right? How do we leverage that personal board of advisors, diversifying insights, guidance, perspectives, experiences, and those couple of different people that we talk to? So the question to you, Heather, is how do you see the value to organizations, whether it's in HR, DEI, finance, right? But it's the piece of bringing together that plan and that support system. Where do you see the value in that?
There's lots of value in that. And I think when you develop that plan, there's different levels where one thing that I do for myself that I also coach others is to develop your own plan. That there's this piece around career development and taking possession or control of your own career, but who really teaches you how to do that? So that when you step into a role, okay, part of your plan should be, what's your exit strategy? What's the next step? About how long do you think you have in that role? Who do you need to accomplish, or what do you need to accomplish, and who do you need to connect to while you're in that role? And your mentors, your board of advisors can help you with that. But it's you leading that plan along the way to develop that. So I think along the way, looking at my own role in mentorship, being a mentor myself, where I work, whether I've been an intern, I've had interns work under me. I've been a formal and informal mentor to career professionals within HR, outside of HR. I mean, for me, it's part of giving back, because so many gave to me along the way. So I'd say, don't wait for formal mentorship programs. I think sometimes too, at least for me in my experience, the best experience was to kind of seek your own mentors. So as you're building that plan, part of that plan should be, what mentorship do I need, and what type of mentorship, and who are my personal board of advisors, who's my sounding board, and be specific about, I think we're learning more about this now. So if you ask someone to be a mentor, say, I'd like for you, get more specific. What do you want them to mentor you on specifically? And then find out if they have the capability as well as the capacity. Because maybe I may be a good mentor, but I may not. It depends on what you need from me, and if I have the capacity to give it to you right now, or the capability to give it to you at all. So those were things that I looked at along the way in developing my kind of board of advisors, and the same advice I give to others, and the kind of the same principle that I still use today. So even in this, transitioning from corporate to working in your own business, I may work with other consultants. I may reach out to other friends in different roles and in capacities, looking at organizations or kind of other leaders in places where I want to be, to say, to ask those questions. How do you either engage with consultants? What getting insight on the direction that I'm heading. And so sometimes that means even if I don't fully know where I'm heading, because you may not fully have the plan. And I think especially whether it's through your career or as a business owner, it changes. And it changes, I think what I've also realized as a business owner, it changes more frequently than it did probably in your career path. So can you get comfortable, and how adaptable can you be to ebb and flow with the times? DEI is a great example. The work goes up and down. So how do you also develop your portfolio of skill sets to match where there's availability at now?
You talk about the piece of DEI kind of in and out, up and down. We saw a lot of change of corporate diversity officer positions. I think you know where I'm heading with this. We saw some entities drop pieces of DEI, right?
Yeah.
So whenever we just touched on the importance and the value to organizations when it comes to mentorship, career mapping, building a personal board of advisors across our organization. But talk to us, even more so about the value of DEI. You talked about the data work. I've, talked to Dr. V a lot about this piece. But whenever somebody comes to you and says, hey, Heather, I like you a lot, but, we don't have money for DEI. It's not really something that we're prioritizing here at our, 10,000 person organization. What's your response to them other than knocking them on the side of the head and saying, hey, don't be a knucklehead here? But how do you walk through that part of the conversation, perhaps more eloquently than the knock on the head?
Well, what is your organizational culture? DEI is very much as part of your organizational culture. So whether you choose to be intentional and strategic about the efforts you put forth toward DEI now, DEI and the culture, the diversity of your workforce, the diversity in thought process and work, that's going to happen whether you put work toward it or not. So just why would you, if you're going to intentionally put work towards an effort towards improving your business, why would you not put work toward and be intentional about improving your workplace culture? To me, they're one and the same. How with culture and engagement. So putting the efforts that the sort of the output you get, why wouldn't you want to shape that future? I guess I just don't understand, because being the professional or within the organization, your stakeholders, your internal and your external stakeholders, whether they be your employees, your board, your share advisors, people know those who are organic and sincere. And whether you sort of use data to tell that story, people are going to tell that story in different ways for you, or with or without you. So I think that it's not something you can opt out of, or it shouldn't be anything that you can opt out of. You should be intentional and strategic and putting forth efforts in building your business. And this key point in building any organizational business is your organizational culture, and DEI comes with that.
It's a part of it, and it's a part of it whether you talk about it and spend money on it or not. It's just you want to. I love how you said the piece. You want to drive it. You want to be in the seat to positively influence what that looks like inside your walls. Heather, I'm going to get ready to do a quick recap here. Any parting knowledge or tidbits that you'd like to share with our listeners today?
Parting knowledge or tidbits, I'd say when it comes to those, I guess in particular, those kind of 5 dimensions of that career journey, I think where you can be intentional and strategic about your career journey, not so much about the title, but where is it that you want to go, and let some level of kind of instinct guide you, and have fun along the way. I think in a lot of this, we forget about the fun, and even in the space of work, what are you attracted to? What lights you up? and being able to sort of keep track of that and then gravitate to the type of work that is enjoyable. So not very concrete, but I think that a little bit more fluffy, but it served me well.
It sits well with me. So Heather, thank you for joining us today. From corporate to entrepreneur and consultant, Heather joins us, Chicago-based, with early dreams of making money in law. And by the time this is posted, she will also be a glass-blowing hobbyist. The Fighting Illini degree in communications then geared her towards applying to law school. And those law school places missed out on Heather twice, which gave her an opportunity to find something more connected to her career plan, deep in the action with HR and labor relations. Cue up the grad school in the practitioner program at Wisconsin. The toolbox got filled with curiosity, flexibility, adaptability. You talked about communications a couple times. And you said, I'm not meant to be a food inspector, but you did say yes to the foundry. Negotiator on all fronts inside the workplace. More and more and more communication skills to translate to across the talent lifecycle before, during, after employment. Your board was built on a foundation with your parents. And you asked the question, how do I make myself a unicorn and more employable as you're going through that career map piece? Great take for all the listeners. Heather's outreach, right? Hey, I want to learn from you. Then she took action, dropped some knowledge on us on, some of that tricky mentor outreach, and guided in alignment with the Pathfinders methodology. So yourself, your goals, what kind of a guide am I looking for? Who can help me? Areas to learn about and help me get into a little bit more of a niche. Where am I that unicorn going again? And then reach out, take action. Share what you know and shared what you'd like to learn. Link it to the business, link it to your growth plan, and link it to one another so you can help each other. Thanks again to Dr. V for the intro, who helped us see, right? Heather's talked about the journey, HR to informal DE&I to then more formal roles. Your org's data tells the story, influence it. Heather's work formalizes this and makes it a reality. Put together a plan and figure out who can help you get there. Make that plan a reality. Plan the change. We know that's going to be consistent throughout our life. And thanks for sharing more of how we can link DEI to, not against, our organizational culture. So my takeaway is that intentionality and instinct for enjoyability gives that best opportunity for a successful career journey. Thanks, Heather.
Thanks, Pete. That was an awesome summary.